Hey there, everyone. Gerson here from MSP Sabre. Today, I'm being joined by Nancy Enriquez from SuperOps. I'm super excited to have you on. Nancy was a former MSP owner and now is doing a lot of wonderful things over at SuperOps. Nancy,
Hey, how are you, Gerson?
I'm great. Thanks.
I'm so excited to be here with you and to chat about MSPs and everything that we've got going on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we haven't known each other long, but I think we connected really quickly. And your experience as an MSP and now your new role, you're getting a chance to not only hear what other MSPs are doing, but kind of share with them your experience and some amazing things. So I'll kind of let you get started into how you'd like to start today on top three MSP mistakes in 2024.
Yeah. I think, for those that don't know me, and that you definitely said, I'm a previous MSP owner. So being now head of community for Super Ops, it gives me definitely a different perspective, bringing in that experience of an MSP, of being an MSP previously. And so, it's really great to be able to go out onto different conferences and to meet other MSPs, to meet a lot more MSPs than what I had previously as an MSP myself, and also be able to talk about some of the things that are going on and that MSPs are facing these days, which I didn't have to when I was an MSP, but
Hmm.
then at the same time, they're facing certain things now that I used to face as well. And so it's definitely a unique perspective, I would say, than especially than I've ever had. So for sure, I am seeing a lot of different things out there, and some that I've been through, some that I haven't. And so it's also great to be able to talk to other MSPs and see what everybody else is doing and going through.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think you and I exited about the same time. I think somewhere between 2 and 3 years ago, and I just remember a lot of the challenges back then were really still not as heavy on security or compliance. That was still something, and not to say that there's not a lot of education going on now with clients, but I feel like we were really, really, really at the tip of the iceberg when we exited. And I think there was still even, to some degree, still some clients that really just needed to be educated on the model and why it benefited them. And kind of fast forwarding till now, I see a lot of MSPs sort of struggling with so many different things. And I kind of wanted to start off. You outlined like three things that you wanted to kind of get in on. But what was the first one that you have on your list?
Yeah. So one of the things that I have, that I think has been an ongoing issue with different MSPs is really differentiating between other MSPs. And I think that we've come a long way over the last few years in determining, how do we separate each other from everybody else, right? Because we all essentially do something very similar.
Right.
We a lot of the times build very similar stacks. Um, we use similar tools, and so when it comes to how clients see MSPs or your MSP in particular, that's one thing that I feel is still a struggle for MSPs in differentiating between themselves and their neighbor MSP or their competitor. Um, and it was a problem for me. So I don't foresee that being ever really being solved per se,
Hmm.
but one thing that I think that is happening nowadays is that there's a lot more MSPs that are really honing in on a niche. And so from just seeing that happen amongst other MSPs and MSPs now, it's fantastic, right? So now we're really digging into something that is beyond what everybody else can do, beyond the technology, beyond the tools, and so we're really starting to pay attention to who and what is our the identity in our business. And that's something that is crucial, I think, in 2024. And if MSPs aren't paying attention to that aspect of their brand, because that's what it is at the end of the day, they're they're not going to differentiate themselves between them and their competitors. And now that's something that is huge because in the last 3 years, buyers have really changed the way that they buy and the way that they or what they know, right? So how they're educated in terms of what a managed service provider is and what they do for their business and why they should be looking for one. And so as the buyers are becoming a lot more educated, it becomes a lot more crucial now than ever to be able to quickly discern what makes your MSP different than any others.
Yeah. I think to your point is kind of what I've been hearing. I mean, it just keeps becoming truer and truer every year that by the time often when you are speaking with the prospect, I was mentioning before, I just kind of walk them through the model and just walk them through kind of what the benefits of how you work are. They're already familiar with that. They're like, I've already spoken to three other MSPs or whatever. I kind of
Yep.
want to know what's different about you. And if I am, a nonprofit, if I'm a marketing agency, if I'm a manufacturing or some sort, to your point about starting to kind of become more vertical, people really want to know that you have not only the knowledge, about their business, but around their tool set and their workflows.
Right, that you actually know something about their business. You know, a lot of the times that's those are the questions that they're asking nowadays is how many customers in my industry do you have? How familiar are you with my software? Um, can you suggest other software in my industry that's specific for my industry? You know, because nowadays there's so many people and companies out there that are looking for the same things that we as MSPs are looking for, which is efficiencies. How do I
Right.
create efficiencies in my business? And if you aren't aware of how to help with those questions nowadays, really it's going to be, well, somebody else knows. You know, your competitor came in here with a list of three other companies that are very similar to mine, and they know and they understand what my business and what my industry is needing and going through. So those are things that I think is a little bit more harsher, I would say, on the MSPs of today than 3 years ago when I exited. So I
Yeah.
think that's something that, you know, if MSPs really are not differentiating themselves in 2024 in a way that is quick and easy for their customers to assess, then that's a mistake. That's a huge mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think to me, I mean, you have to look at put yourself in their shoes, and if someone comes in and not only are they working with other people in the same industry or that know their industry, but those people can also most likely talk about results that they've brought along. So if they're used to working with the accounting firms and they could talk about how they cut down waste or just improve the systems, and they could talk about what those tangible results were, it's tough. So you really want to be on the other side of that, where
Yeah.
um, where you're coming in and you're delivering such great results and such deep, insightful knowledge about their industry, that at that point, price does not really become sort of the main thing. Because when everyone is sort of looking the same, when it's all like, I remember I used to hate that word, being in sales, apples to apples.
Hmm.
And it's like, I'm not even fruit, pal. So
Never.
don't say that to me. I'm like a whole other thing. So when you come in, your results are really clear, and what you're offering, you're bringing to them is so really clear. Again, like it moves away from price and all these other little things that sometimes deals fall apart on. And they'll be willing to pay for that premium, which is what you want at the end of the day, because it not only helps you with scale, because now if your team knows how to support these types of systems, they're familiar with the stack, they're familiar with the workflow, it also helps out sales. It also helps out marketing, because
Oh
now
yeah.
you have referrals. You can quickly show your expertise in the industry.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And you know, a lot of the times we think of the tangible things that make us different or that will make us stand out to be different. We want to have something that we say, look, this thing in particular is what makes us different. And a lot of the times it ends up being generic items that are commodities. And so really what it comes down to as an MSP and figuring out what makes you different. A lot of the times it's the intangible things. It's the experience that you have. It's the lifestyle that you want to have or that you currently lead. You know, so it's and then it's getting the customers that fit within those those things that make the identity of your company. You know what I mean? And it's those things that it's what you sell. So even before a customer knows the services you provide or the solutions that you provide, it's can you align with the right customers that then become what you know, the expertise that you have or that you dig into and learn, that then become what separates you from all your other MSPs out there,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think one thing, if you really still are not convinced, think about the fact of when you're looking to work with someone, would you hire a marketing company that's never worked with an MSP before? Would you you know, are you going to hire an accountant that just sort of has a very general approach, or would you hire another accountant that maybe already has three, four, whatever other, how many other MSP accounts, and they're familiar with how your business works, right? It's like just think about that. It's like those people are going to have an advantage in your eyes.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, for me, I'll give an example of how I did that with my business earlier on. I realized that one, I live in Houston,
Mhm.
so Houston is the medical capital of the world, right? Like we have the medical center here is huge, and so working with doctors for me, it was something that was a given, just
Mhm.
because of the population. And so realizing I have a group of doctors that are my best customers, not only because they're really cool and all of that, but guess what? Their hours fit into the hours that I want to work. So 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. I didn't want to work weekends. They fit right into my lifestyle perfectly. And so that fit. And then I found what are some of the other industries that have the same requirements or the same needs as these doctors that I want to work for? And, you know, eh, realizing, okay, they have HIPAA compliance that they have to abide by, right? So now that I know that, what are some of the other industries that have to abide by HIPAA compliance and they require the exact same things? So from there stemmed personal injury lawyers. And why? Because they work with the doctors that I work with. And so I'm not going to go look for law firms that are um, real estate law firms that have nothing to do with HIPAA compliance, right? So
Right.
that started to form some of the things my that made my company different because I then formed my services and my the tool sets that I needed in order to fit what the problems they had and what I needed to solve for them. And so that's what I did within my business. You know, there's so many different things that you can hone in on, that start off with what is it that you want and where do things fit for you. And then I'm sure you're already working with clients that already, that speak to that lifestyle, that speak to that expertise that you may already have and things like that. And then you continue from there because you already have that innately built into your MSP and to who that is. And so when they saw that, comparatively speaking to any of our other competitors, it was really easy for them to decide because I had made it easy for them to make that decision. So that's one way that I would say, I definitely differentiated myself and my brand based
Mhm.
off of that. But I see that happening or needing to happen even more as time continues, because again, like we are eventually going to be, if we're not already, a commodity. And then it becomes more so about the experience that you give, and who you are as a business.
Yeah, yeah. And thanks for sharing that, by the way, because that's something I think I always sort of had in the back of my head. Think about how it aligns with your lifestyle. My MSP, I was based out of New York City. So there's a lot of sort of industries there. And financial services was really not the one that, it kind of, not that we didn't pursue it, but it was sort of like on the bottom for us, just because we knew that especially with a lot of firms. Like sometimes, you have people that will come in at 4 in the morning, and they'll stay till, some crazy time at night, and they're very demanding. So, and
Hmm.
that's just it. And you really want to think about, if you want to respond to people that they're in those very demanding environments, you're going to have a team that can kind of respond like that. And a good buddy of mine, he exited his MSP. He actually was focused solely in the financial sector, and he was very clear with me. They decided to focus on that, but they clearly also understood, um, you know, the parts that maybe other people wouldn't like about
Yeah,
pursuing that industry. I don't want to bash
yeah,
it, but I'm just saying, he was comfortable with it. His team understood about it, and he hired people and he set the expectations for his team. He's like, this is what we're supporting. This is sort of the expectations they have on us. But yeah, it's really good to kind of think about lining it up with your lifestyle. I think one time I think I was looking at working with some kind of like trade school that they worked with people, typically with adults. So it was like kind of continuing adult education. Most of those classes are in the evenings and on weekends. So, again, that at the time was sort of really way out of what all our other customers are at. And, the deal kind of fell apart for other reasons. We were still trying to see like what opportunity there was there. But, the closer we got in on it, I'm like, it's just really not a good fit. You know, most of the time that they'll need help is when, we have sort of like just an on-call person, not, a fully staffed team. And we could, obviously, if we wanted to pursue a lot of those schools, we could, but then obviously we have to adjust with our staffing and so forth. So
right. Oh
yeah.
yeah, there was plenty of times I had, here in my local town. I had met a gentleman who owned several of the hotels in the area, and he wanted to work with us, and I had to tell him no, because we, as a company, our processes were not built to handle calls that come in from users of the hotel if their Wi-Fi was down, in the middle of the night, or on a weekend. And so it wouldn't have aligned, and it would have caused more problems than we needed, and my techs would have hated me. And so, it's I think it's important to know, what you want out of your business as a business owner first, before then building a business around services that you may not want to accommodate to. And so that's something that, we had to go through every deal, and to make sure, does this fit with what we do? Because our processes will not change based off of who we're working for. Our processes are the same. So if they will fit into these processes, great. If not, then that's not going to be a good fit for us. And so I guess that also kind of leads to what would be the second, mistake that
Mhm.
MSPs make, or are making in 2024, which is not paying attention to their operations first,
Mm.
and not building their operations around who they are and who their customers are, is would be that mistake. Because if well, and just continuing the conversation down
Mhm.
this path, if I had built my services for a private healthcare office, and then tried to fit in a hotel that has all sorts of crazy hours, that does not have regular users, so you have to be able to help a guest that calls in at midnight, or Sally that is there every day. And so those weren't things that we were built for. And so if somebody from a guest from a hotel would have called my help desk at the same time as, let's say, uh, you know, Jimmy from the doctor's office, they would
Mhm.
not have received the same type of service. Why? Because we were built to serve Jimmy at the private healthcare office in a particular way, and his experience was built in a particular way, but we didn't build it in that way for Sally calling at midnight from a hotel down the street. So two different experiences would have happened. And so if we would have built our operation, if we hadn't paid attention to those things within the operations itself, you have chaos, and that's not what you want within your operations.
Yeah. To me, I'm just keep thinking, I'm like, it's so important to set expectations for your operations, and then for me, it always important, like, remind the team of, like, these are the expectations that we set. So
Mhm.
if people
Yeah,
like, yeah, it's like we didn't respond quickly enough, and they have an excuse why they didn't respond. It's like, guys, I hear you, or gals, but it's like these are the expectations. So you
right.
talk about an SLA or whatever it is, but they thought they were going to get this, they instead got that. That's a problem. So
Yeah, no, exactly, 100%. And so those are things that, if again you don't build the business with these things in mind, then what you have is unpredictability, and what you have is chaos. And if that's the business that you want to be in, because there's some people that love break fix, and that is the type of business that they want, and more
mhm,
power to them. That
yeah,
that is a complete and whole business model. um but then there's all other people that don't want that, and they want the predictability, and they want the experience to be the same and to be seamless. And so if that's the case, then you have to plan for that, and you have to be able to build the processes around that as well. And so that then talks to everything else that comes down the line, the type of expertise that your technicians are going to need. um, do you want certified techs or not certified techs? Does it matter? All of those questions then start to come into who is it that you serve, how is it that you're going to serve them, and then who is it that you need. So it all feeds back into each other.
yeah. You're so right. Yeah, it's just more and more and more and more reasons why, really kind of picking the industries, the verticals, whatever niche, whatever you want to call it, is so important. Because at the end of the day, I have a lot of analogies around MSP services, and also because I see a lot of parallels with the restaurant. With like a typical like kind of sit down restaurant. And to me, you really have to decide what you want on your menu, and there's really straightforward menus that you're like, okay, this is not a big menu, but this is the place. Um, you know, that that they're good at this stuff. It's a small menu. You're like, all right, and that's going to work for a lot of people, right? And typically, when you go to a restaurant and you see, like, wow, this is an expansive menu. I don't even know what the cuisine here is. You sort of can't really expect for them to be great at any one of those things, right? Because that's just the way it is. You can't have 100 things on your menu and be great at all of them. It's just not possible.
Right.
Um,
You go to a buffet and you expect the expectation when you go to a buffet is I want to eat a lot. It doesn't have to be
right,
good, but I want to eat a lot.
right,
I want to walk away feeling stuffed
yeah,
and like I don't need to eat for another week. But
yeah,
if you go to Chick-fil-A, it's a completely different experience,
mhm,
and their processes are built for a completely different experience.
right. And to the point, I'm like, you'll see now, especially like again with the restaurants, there's a lot of restaurants now that it's interesting. I think there was a time that I remember, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but I would see, the sort of the value add that a restaurant would be bringing sometimes is that they had an expansive menu, and we're kind of going the opposite direction now. I think, and it seems like kind of we're going to be going that for a while. In a lot of new restaurants, they sometimes have like really, really, really simple menu. I mean, I still think of Chick-fil-A. I'm like, they just sell chicken. That is it.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
they're outperforming most restaurants by a huge factor. And it kind of just goes to show you when you focus on something and when you put that clarity out, it helps so much, not only with your staff, your operations, your branding, your marketing, your sales, everything, because you're known for that thing. There's not like three different things that people know you for, because it's hard to keep all that in someone's head. It's like, oh well, they're good at this, they're good at that. But if you just put out that one thing, that just helps you go that much further.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And I think that all kind of leads back to, I would say, the final mistake that MSPs are making in 2024, which is to not get enough advice, or to, I guess it would be more so of kind of tunnel visioning, especially
Hmm.
around one area of support when it comes to um, the advice and the uh, where you go for education, right? So for me, I've always been the type of person that I love to hear advice. I love to get as much advice as I can because I like to learn from others, especially where I can. But then I leave the advice that I don't like. And a lot of the times I end up forming something new out of what would be somebody else's mistakes and advice, hard-earned lessons, um, versus where I'm trying to go and things like that. So I typically end up with a blend of things.
Hmm.
And if it wasn't for hearing the different advice or the different takes, the different perspectives on what is going on, I feel like I wouldn't have had the the same number, or the same success that I had when I exited my business. So I would say that for technicians, a lot of the times, just human nature, right? We like to stay where we're comfortable, and we hear, or we get to a point where we have one group of people, we have one mentor, or we have one peer group, or we have one community that we've joined and we really like it and we love it. And so we don't go outside of that. But I would say that that's a mistake, because at every level of growth, you're going to need different advice. You're going to need different perspectives, because some people have been there, some people haven't. And so the more that you allow yourself to hear, the more that the bigger you allow your echo chamber to get, the better it is, because you see all these different perspectives, and then you can start to piece together, well, maybe this worked for that person, but if I tried it in the same way that they did, maybe tweak a little bit, that may be where I need to be. And so without that extra support, without going to all these different areas to find those different perspectives, you may tunnel, or you may just put yourself into a box that you may not have to be in. And so I would say that's the advice that I would give to MSPs for 2024 is, don't just stick with one community, venture out, be a little uncomfortable. It's okay. Because there's other wonderful communities, and there's a ton of people that want to help and that have been there, done that, and that have all of this different experience in different areas, even people that are uh, outside of our industry would
Hmm.
be good to talk to, because you just never know, I like to call them the nuggets of knowledge that come from talking to other people, and venturing outside of your bubble.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it could be tough sometimes. It's, but depending on what you're doing, is like a peer group or whatever, you might have made some friendships there, but it's still, look for other opportunities to learn from other people. And like what you were saying, even if it's outside of the MSP space, I know for me, early on when I started my business, I really was like just thirsty for knowledge, because I'm a big believer, and one of the first groups I joined in New York was not MSPs. It was just like a lot of different industries. We're kind of all around the same size, which you kind of want that, because at least you kind of have similar challenges in your business. But outside of that, it was really interesting, and I learned a lot just hearing kind of the challenges that other people had in their industries. And after a while, you start kind of translating to what probably those challenges are in a similar way in your own industry, just look a little different. Some others, they're larger, they move faster, even, it is possible. And and it kind of gives you a little bit of sneak peek into what's going on outside of the MSP space. So,
Oh
but yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and one thing I also wanted to add is sometimes people go in and like kind of what they're gonna get out of it, and I'm like, there's two things. You should really also be thinking about what you can contribute, because you actually do get a lot out of it. Just like kind of sharing your own mistakes, even maybe you don't want to share kind of your secret recipe for things. The truth be told, no one really has that an original idea anymore. Sometimes people are really protective of what they're doing, but like it's no one has an original idea. I'm sure someone else is doing it already. So you might as well share it because maybe that person that's already doing it can tell you where they went wrong and probably save you some time. But definitely try to see where you can also contribute to the community. I just think like you just get so much back. Get new friendships. People might give you even new ideas that you never thought of. Um, and yeah, and also kind of listen for people's mistakes, because sometimes people might be a little protective of kind of where their successes would be because they think they're giving away, like say, like a secret. But most people are not protective of their mistakes, and they might be farther along in the journey than you are, and they might, just larger or going into an industry you're not very knowledgeable with. So learning from kind of like what huge mistake, what problem they make, now to avoid it and kind of what to expect if you're in a similar challenge. That's incredibly valuable to me as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I have to so when I and early on in my career, I have to say I did not participate in any kind of communities or anything along those lines. And the
Mhm,
reason why was because I started off my career right out of high school. I did not have any kind of degrees or any kind of schooling besides an internship that I had and what I learned on the job and my own research, right? And
mhm,
so what also I was 22 when I started my first business, and so I was very very cautious about wanting to talk about my age or anything that made it appear or even got close to people asking me what my age was just because I felt like
mhm,
I was going to be judged and or not seen as um, someone that was knowledgeable. So there was a lot that I was hiding per se. Um, and so I didn't reach out and get the mentorship or join any kind of communities at the very beginning of my career. And it wasn't until 8 years later when I got accepted into the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, literally when I realized there's all I have to do is talk to people. All I have to do is ask for advice. All I have to do is share, and then the community will, open up and help me. Then that's all I had to do. And 8 years later was when everything happened for me. I sold that first business. And I started my second MSP, and then 5 years later, I was able to exit that one
mhm,
in a much better place
mhm,
than I exited the first business with almost nothing to show for it for eight
mhm,
years. So to me, that was huge. Something that was like, just put yourself out there and talk about what you were going through, ask for advice. I hired an executive coach to coach me personally past certain I guess weaknesses that I needed to work on, or skills that I needed to pick up that weren't technical, more so public speaking and feeling more confident when speaking and things like that. And every time that I basically got to a new level in business, I needed to go again and get a different peer group, because I thought that it was important not only to have those that are going through something similar with you, but then also those that have been there and done
mhm,
that. And so I always basically got a peer group or a mentor that was 1 to 2 levels above or where I wanted to be more so,
mhm,
uh, as well as keeping the ones that were going through the exact same things I was going through.
mhm,
And so that was important to me. And now I'm at a point where I'm able to give back, but at the same time, also being able to contribute, like you were saying, and because that also helps and that gets conversations going that dive much deeper than what you would originally have thought if you uh, didn't contribute as much. So that's also something I think equally as powerful is to go in with what can I help with, because there again, we're all going through something, and if we don't speak up, then we won't be able to help one another. And that's all what community is about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to me also it's just um the industry moves really fast. So there's no sort of like a school that you can, or a class you can get. I mean, I know there's people that teach classes, but more like in what would happen in other industries. So to me, like if you really want that, that best knowledge, it really needs to be the most current knowledge, and that's just going to come from your peers.
Yeah.
And I'm, just thinking about even like post pandemic, so many of the adjustments that MSPs have made, but also all the opportunities as well. So for thinking that communities can also help you just sort of overcome some of the challenges that you've had in your business, and you'll learn from other people how to get over those challenges, you will also discover a lot of new opportunities as well. um, you know Places where you can take your business that you weren't thinking of before. I know for me, um, there was a time that I was like, what? There's people with like $5 million MSPs and $10 million MSPs. How do they do that? What type
Mhm.
of clients do you get to get to that point? What type of services do you offer to that point? And the point being is like maybe that's not a goal for everyone, but if it is for you, it behooves you to start finding out what's the journey that those people took, because it may be able to be different for you, but it might not be that different as well. And these people, especially in our space, and I think I know Juan over at Super Ops, he's insane as well with how generous he is. There's just a lot of people out there that have had a tremendous amount of success, and they're willing to share, and once you get to that point, it really kind of becomes sort of, I think, jet fuel to kind of propel you into where you want to go.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I have yet to encounter someone that does not want to share, to be honest. So I think that's saying a lot and that we're going in the right direction. And, I think if anything, people just need to know, like, it's okay, reach out, that's what we're all here for, as a community. I think that we all want to succeed and we all want to see everyone else succeed. And then to also understand that we're all in a community where what we do, the MSPs, who we support and who we're in a community with, to me are the heartbeat of small businesses and
Mhm.
businesses in general. And so I think that with that understanding, there is not anyone here that wants to, not help an MSP out. So it's like, just reach out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think also you just have so many smart people that I think if you're talking in a room or you're putting out a question or whatever, just like it's hard for some people to just stay quiet because they've got the knowledge and they want to put it out. So, but they're not going to do that until they see someone saying like, "Hey, I need help," or I have this challenge," or "I'm thinking of doing whatever it is." So,
Oh yeah.
that's what I see the most, because that's happened to me as well. And if someone starts talking about something that is really close to an experience I've had or an expertise that I have around, it's like I've got to just share, so,
Yeah.
I've been in breakouts and I'll be like, "Hey," and I'll grab the person in the hallway. I'm like, "Yeah, I saw you were talking about this," and I'll just, like offer some help.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's where a lot of magic happens, in the hallways of events, of conferences.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's great. I think for most people, that's when they're sort of the most. I mean, I still see people on their laptops, but it's when the people are sort of the most mentally away from their business, and just there's so much good information that then they start really listening, and then like kind of the juices start flowing, and that's amazing when you start really, like I said, you start realizing the opportunities you have, and you get re-energized. So.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's why I love what I do.
Well, Nancy, thanks again for joining me. This has been wonderful. Certainly look forward to connecting with you again. And you're a fountain of wealth, and I know you're doing some awesome stuff over there at Super Ops. Anything you want to share before we sign off?
Yeah, yes. I in the spirit of, just reach out. I do So something that we do at Super Ops is we're huge into education, and so we put on what we call super summits across the entire country. And this is a event that is not sales not sales oriented. There is not a single sales pitch that happens during these events, not even our own. um, and so we invite MSPs to come to these events. We host you, we will fly you out there, we take care of your stay, and all we want you to do is focus on learning and networking with your peers while you're there at these events. So we bring on educators that are MSP and outside of our industry educators, and we walk you through how to grow your business essentially within one day. And then we have some fun afterwards because you've got to let the brain rest.
Yes.
Um, and so, yeah, so I invite any MSP that is interested in growing their business, go to supersummit.com. And there you can find the different locations and the different dates. And just go ahead and register and we'll take care of you. Beyond that, anyone that is looking for a community, I invite you to the Super Ops community. You do not have to be a um, a customer of Super Ops. That is just it is open to everyone, and
Mhm.
there's a ton of resources there as well as peers. And yeah, we just invite you to come and participate, learn, and give and grow.
Okay. Is that on one of the social networks, the community you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's community.superops.com.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So people can look out for that. Yeah, that wasn't that's not even a resource I was available until not that long ago. So that's amazing that you guys created that. So
Yeah, it's something that what we've realized is, and I think that's why they brought me on board, is that really you have to have education and you have to be able to give to the community
Mhm.
first, because otherwise, how else are they supposed to get to know you? So,
Yeah. Well, like I said, there's still a lot of questions that a lot of MSPs are asking. Again, like it's a fast pacing, fast changing industry, and I think it's just great that you guys are putting the information out there and doing your part with that.
yeah, absolutely. We're here to help.
So, Nancy, thanks again for joining us, and yeah, hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you as well.